Dr. Unwin. Shall we talk about salt? That's one of your favorite topics.
It is.
So salt,
Heavens.
we've blamed salt for decades. For decades, salt is the enemy.
Yes.
Salt is poison. I never knew that salt was one of the most sort of important minerals that we all need. I never knew that about salt. So as a diabetic, I was told to just not, reduce salt intake, which I did. But of course, it had no impact on my A1C. I was never told to reduce carbohydrates or sugar, but I was told to reduce salt to keep blood pressure in control, which it always was, I have to say. But let's talk about salt.
Yeah. So what I'm about to tell you now has all been published. And if you Google Unwin and blood pressure and low carb, there is a paper that I've written on this with a professor of cardiology. So anybody interested to learn far more, it's all there in that paper. And as I'll tell this as a story, really, because I spent years confused. So what confused me was when I went low carb myself, I went from having moderately raised blood pressure, about 160 over 92, something like that, to 124 over 70. And in fact, my blood pressure was so much improved, I found if I stood up too quickly, I felt dizzy and had to hang on to my desk. And I was astonished when I took my blood pressure that it was low blood pressure. I couldn't understand that. And then all the patients were finding the same, so much so that I was reducing blood pressure medication in every clinic because they weren't needing the drugs they had been prescribed by me before. So their blood pressure was improving. That was the first mystery. The second mystery was that I found personally an increase in muscle cramps, partly because I'm a runner and I take a lot of exercise. And the only way to solve this was have more salt. So I had to start having more salt in my diet to get rid of the muscle cramps. And at the same time, the blood pressure didn't go up. So that was weird because I was anxious about all this salt. And I thought, well, surely it's going to put my blood pressure. It never did. And nor the same, the patients, the early patients found exactly the same. They were all on more salt and the blood pressure remained good. And then the third mystery was that I found that people, when they first go low carb, start passing a lot of urine. So that I had people who'd had swollen ankles for years and that I'd been using drugs for. And then they'd say, well, I stopped using those drugs because I don't need them because my ankles are great now. And abdominal bloating has gone as well. I couldn't understand these three things. The idea that patients who are low carb could have more salt, the idea that the blood pressure would improve, and the odd idea that they seem to pass more urine. And it took me, I forget now, probably about 3 or maybe 4 years to get to the bottom of all of this. And I now know. So actually, we've all known since 1932 that insulin causes the kidneys to hoard salt. So a high carb diet, is a high insulin diet, means your body doesn't wee out the salt it ought to. And you start hoarding salt, and fluid follows salt. And that's how you get bloating, swollen ankles, and also it puts your blood pressure up. But then, of course, when you put this into reverse and you go low carb, which is low insulin, then you start weeing out more urine, taking the salt with it. Blood pressure improves. So we've, in many cases, I feel, we blame the salt for what the sugar actually did. And that's a very popular lecture that I give all over the world about we blamed the salt for what the sugar did. And what a revelation for me. And to know that this had been known for, 90 years. And there's been a lot of follow-up studies, all of which are in the paper if you look it up. So how interesting. And so one of the things I would say to people who go low carb is you should buy yourself a blood pressure machine and see, because your blood pressure may be going to improve. And if you're on medication, you may be able to ask your prescriber, is this the right dosage? Should I reduce my dose of drugs?